Hey everybody, and welcome to another video. In this one, we're going to be tackling exam objective 3.2. We're going to be summarizing basic cable types and their connectors, features, and purposes. We do have quite a lot to go through today, but I'm going to try to make it as quick and efficient as I can while still telling you everything you need to know. Also, I'm going to tell you the kind of questions they may ask you on your exam, and finally, I'm going to give you some practice questions at the end of this video to make sure you're ready for the real thing. So as usual, let's go ahead and get started. Step 1, put my seeing goggles on so I can see the information that I have to tell you about. And step 2, let's get started with network cables. That's going to be our first starting point. So guys, look, we're going to get started with network cables, guys. Now, long story short, there's a wide variety of network cables that we do need to know about for your exam. I'm going to give you a brief overview now, and then we will dive into specifics coming up. So I'll give you a brief overview so your brain is a little bit primed, and then we'll go into the specifics so you'll kind of know what I'm talking about before we get there. So look, you can read the information over here if you want to, but essentially we've got a couple of different ones. This first one over here is one we will need to know about. It's called a twisted pair cable. Now this is essentially an Ethernet cable. We have talked about the concept of wired internet before in previous exam objectives. This is the specific cable that is used to deliver wired internet connections. It is an Ethernet cable, and the kind of official name for it is a twisted pair cable. Now, the reason it's a twisted pair cable is if you zoom in, you can see that it consists of a variety of different wires, and those wires are in pairs. Okay, twisted pair cable. You can also see that they are twisted around each other. Twisted pair cable, right? There's a twisted part and there's the pair part. Why are they twisted? Long story short, they're twisted around each other in order to remove the chance of any interference, because if they're twisting around each other, the theory is that they are always moving away from interference, right? That's the theory. So the pairs are twisted around each other to reduce the chance or the risk of interference. These cables can come in shielded, in which case they have some additional shielding to protect even more from interference. And they can also come unshielded, where they don't have any additional shielding to protect from interference. We'll dive more into those details later, but that's pretty much what you need to know about. So that's the first type that we're going to be looking at, and that is a type of copper cable known as the twisted pair cable, all right? So we've covered those. The next one is coaxial. We will need to know about this as well. Now, a quick little Google image search here for coaxial cable. Long story short, guys, it looks something like this, right? Where's one with English? Here we go. Looks something like this, where it's got an outer layer and it's got almost one big core-like looking thing and then one big cylinder-like piece of copper even further in. And what this is used for, it's essentially a cable television connection wire, for lack of better words. So this is the wire we use for cable television connection, and it's also the cable that you use for connecting to the internet over cable internet, right? So we talked about previously, we've talked about different types of internet connection methods. When you're using cable internet, which is using previously existing television infrastructure, you would be using a coaxial cable at some point in that connection. That is for cable connections, for cable television, right? And you will also need to know about the next one, which are fiber optic cables, which essentially is like the super bougie, high-end type of cables where you have strands of light going through the middle of the cable. Essentially, the data is transmitted through a laser through the middle of a cable. So it ends up going really, really far distances at a very, very fast speed, and it's also very, very expensive, okay? Those are the three types of cables we're going to have a look at starting now. We'll get into a little bit more details because we need to know the specifics, right? So we've talked about the fact that the twisted pair cable is a type of copper cable, right? It fits into the categories of copper cable simply because it uses copper, right? It uses copper to transmit that data because they consist of twisted pairs of copper wires that are designed to reduce magnetic interference and improve signal quality. So twisted pairs of copper wires is what the twisted pair cable uses. And remember, this is an Ethernet cable for wired internet connections, okay? That's pretty much what you need to know about it, right? We've talked about the fact that they're twisted to reduce electromagnetic interference and ensure a cleaner and more reliable data signal. We have talked about that. You will see these all over the place for in your home network and in office networks. Basically, it's an Ethernet cable, guys. We know Ethernet cables are used absolutely everywhere, all right? That is a copper twisted pair cable. That's the general concept. Now, there are different categories of these cables, and every category will have a different amount of distance it can travel, and it will also offer a different standard of Ethernet, and with that, a different speed and a different bandwidth. All right, so you have category 5E, you have category 6, category 6A, category 7, and category 8 as well. Now, here's where we get to the kind of annoying bit, guys. We do need to know the difference between these different categories of Ethernet cables. So we really do need to know the following details about each of what I have on the screen here for you. So we need to know the Ethernet standard, and that's basically a way of saying the speed that that Ethernet cable is capable of supporting. It's the name of a standard, and that standard represents the speed that that cable is capable of supporting. We need to know what the data rate is, which is basically the speed that it can support. We need to know the bandwidth, which is how much data can it allow to flow at the one time. Essentially, it's like if speed is how fast the stream is flowing, bandwidth is like how wide is the river, right? If you've got a really skinny river, but it's really fast, that's one thing. But what if you have a really wide river and it's the same speed? They're both the same speed, but you're going to get better data transfer rates with a wider river, right? That's essentially what that breaks down to. And then you also have the maximum distance of that standard. Now, you do need to know pretty much all of that for each of these. This is one of those ones where you really got to buckle down. And honestly, the unfortunate reality is you should pretty much be able to draw this table from heart. I hate telling you guys that whenever I have to say that, but I really want to make sure I emphasize when you need to focus in on something and when you can kind of let it slip a little bit. This one you cannot let slip. You really got to focus in on this one. All right, now I'm going to walk you through briefly each of these, but it is going to fall on you to really focus in on this and make sure you know this down pat. But thankfully, I'll have some questions where you can do that at the end. Let's get to it. So the first one is category 5. All right, with this standard of Ethernet cable, we're going to start off a little bit complicated. Technically, it can support the 1000 base T Ethernet standard, and that basically means it can support 1 gigabit per second of Ethernet. The 1000 base T is supporting 1 gigabit per second of Ethernet. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, but then why does it say 100 megabits per second? It should say 1 gigabit per second, because it's a technicality thing. Technically, it can support 1000 base T, but it is not able to do that reliably. So really, if you're looking for a category of Ethernet cable that is going to be able to reliably, consistently, over decent distances, have speeds of 1 gigabit, you wouldn't want Cat 5. Realistically, you want to think of it as a cable that is going to be able to do 100 megabits per second, all right? It can technically support 1000 base T, but in reality, probably about 100 megabits per second. That's going to be an important distinction coming up. The bandwidth, about 100 megahertz, and a maximum distance of 100 meters. Category 5E. Now, this is basically a type of category 5 table, but they've done some additional testing on this type of cable. It can reliably support 1000 base T Ethernet standard, which means it can reliably give you a data rate of 1 gigabit per second. And it has the same bandwidth and distance as category 5, all right? So it's just reliably able to give you that 1000 base T standard, or that 1 gigabit per second standard. The next one is category 6. Now, this is capable of achieving 10G base T Ethernet standard. And what that basically means is at about 55 meters on that distance, it can achieve 10 gigabits per second. So that's a pretty significant speed increase, but at 100 meters, reliably, really, you're looking at about 1 gigabit per second, okay? You may need to know the difference between those two distances for your exam. And that operates at 250 megahertz. And again, you've got the max distance 100 meters at 1 gigabit per second, yep, and 55 meters at 10 gigabits per second. Then you've got Cat 6A. This is like an enhanced version of the Category 6 cable. It can do 10G base T Ethernet standard, 10 gigabits per second at 500 megahertz, and a max distance of 100 meters, right? So you can see the immediate increase in reliability there, right? That's going to be more expensive than Cat 6, but you've got that increased reliability, increased data rate over longer distances there too. Now, Category 7, right? You've got 10G base T at also 10 gigabits per second, now at 600 megahertz, and at about 100 meters distance. So it's an increase in the megahertz, and from my understanding, there's also an increase in its resistance to interference. I believe it is more resistant to additional interference. So if you're in a really high interference environment and you want a cable that's like really good at dealing with that, category 7, I believe, would be an example of one that would be good there. Now, category 8, here's where we do a big jump, right? 40G base T, huge jump, which is 40 gigabits per second, 2000 megahertz. What, are you kidding? But only at 30 meters, right? So very short distances. There, you're looking at like really high-speed data center type of applications, okay? You wouldn't have this in your home. Very short distances, incredibly high speeds, pretty expensive. You're looking at data centers where that high speed is really important and you don't have really long cable run lengths. All right, so everything I just said, I'm going to undo all my highlighting here so you can actually, if you need to, take a screenshot of this, because I can't emphasize enough, you really need to know, I can't undo anymore. Take a screenshot of that. You really need to know all of that. All right, I hate to say it, but you do. Okay, let's move on. The next one is the standards. Now, this is another annoying one, guys. This exam objective is full of little annoying things we need to know. You have the T568A standard and the T568B standard. Now, basically what these are two different standard ways of wiring Ethernet cables, okay? You can place the pins inside the Ethernet cable in different orders. And these are two set standards, the A standard and the B standard, which basically dictate the order that each color wire goes in, okay? So both standards describe how the 8 wires inside the cable should be connected to the 8 pins inside the RJ45 connector. The primary difference between them is the order of the wire pairs. That's the main difference. We'll have a look at both of these standards now. And it really is as simple as just understanding and pretty much memorizing this, guys, unfortunately. So for the T568A standard, it is white and green, then it is green, then it is white and orange, then blue, then white and blue, then orange, then white and brown, and then brown. Take a screenshot of that image if you want to. This is all in my learning guide, but if you don't have that, you can take a screenshot of this image. I'll give you some bits and pieces of it in this free series. The T568B standard is white and orange, and then white and green, and blue, and white and blue, and green, and white and brown. So you do need to know, guys, you may be asked, like, what is the correct order of these wires? And you're just going to have to know it. It's another one of those really annoying things, okay? So this is in the learning guide. If you don't have it, like, use this video, rewind, take a screenshot, and just, like, write it down, because you do need to know this, all right, 100%. Now, the next thing we're going to have a look at, according to the order of the exam objectives, is the coaxial cable. So, guys, a coaxial cable, right, is essentially used, here we go, it's in a network setup to transmit data for internet connections, but it's specific to cable television based internet connections, right? How we talked about how if you use a cable modem, that word cable is immediately indicative of the fact that we are using previously existing cable television infrastructure, okay? So this is used to connect cable modems. So a coaxial cable is used to connect cable modems to internet service providers. They are durable and shielded, which helps maintain a strong and clear data signal, but they are pretty bulky, right? They're pretty bulky. Now, basically, you just need to know that they're used for cable internet connections, previously existing television infrastructure, and they look something like this, all right? You should be able to visually identify them, okay? They use the F-type connector, which we'll talk about in more detail coming up, but that's pretty much what you need to know about the coaxial cable. Next is the shielded twisted pair cable. Remember, guys, we talked about this. Just a quick Google search, shielded twisted pair will bring up all of these. We talked about this. This is the Ethernet cable, right? The shielded twisted pair cable, long story short, you've just got some additional shielding around each of those pairs of twisted wires, which further protects against electromagnetic interference. It is a little bit more expensive, but if you want that additional protection against interference, you would want shielded twisted pair cables. You can pause and read all this, guys, but that's pretty much what it comes down to. The next one is direct burial. Now, direct burial, it's even further, right? You may have some ground here, and maybe you have a construction site over here, and maybe you have a little shed over here, and your main house is over here, and you need to connect the shed to the house with a cable. What you would want to do in order to protect it from the weather is you may want to get a direct burial cable, which has this additional really heavy duty layer of shielding on the outside. So you could then bury it underground and have it come up, stay safe from the weather, be resistant to all of that dirt and debris underneath, and have an internet connection safely at your shed over there. Okay, so essentially, right, it's essentially installing the cables underground without the need for additional protective conduit. These cables are specifically designed to withstand harsh conditions of being buried directly in the ground. All right, that's pretty much what a direct burial is. It's in the name. You can pause and read all that, but that's pretty much what you need to know. The next one is unshielded twisted pair. Guys, this one's pretty self-explanatory. It's just a shielded twisted pair without that additional shielding. All right, that's all it is. So if you don't want to go that extra step with your shielded twisted pair Ethernet cable, you don't think you need that extra protection and you want to keep it super budget friendly, you don't need to get shielded twisted pair. You can just get unshielded twisted pair. Really important, guys. They may abbreviate this as a UTP cable. Unshielded twisted pair, UTP. Shielded twisted pair is STP. All right, you keep that in mind too for your exam. All right. Another type of cable you need to know is Plenum rated. This is basically a type of cable. This is an AI generated image, by the way. You can probably tell cables aren't that big, but basically in the event of a fire, it is a type of cable, a Plenum rated cable is a type of cable where if it catches on fire, it is not going to emit any harmful, toxic smoke or anything that you can breathe in, right? It is rated in where there are airways, right? If there's ventilation, so that these toxic chemicals don't get leaked into the ventilation and then into the air supply that everyone is consuming. Plenum rated cables are specifically designed to not do that, right? So if they're going in an airway, if you need cables to go in an airway, you're going to want them to be Plenum rated. So they're specifically designed for use in plenum spaces, which are areas used for air circulation in buildings, such as the space between a structural ceiling and the drop-down ceiling under a raised floor. These cables have specific properties to ensure safety in case of a fire, right? So they've got a flame retardant jacket and low smoke and toxic fumes. So they're designed for fire likely areas or in ventilation, for example, all right? In the result of a fire, in the case of a fire, they're going to reduce and minimize the amount of toxic smoke and fumes that are going to be there. That's Plenum rated cable, okay? And then we come to optical, all right? So we come to optical, which is right here, otherwise known as fiber optic cables. Either of those terms could be used in your exam. They're used to transmit data as light signals rather than electric signals. These cables are renowned for their high-speed data transmission and long-distance capabilities. So, right, you've got these lasers. It's like a laser, basically, going through this cable at super high speeds, very reliable, very expensive way of transmitting your data, okay? So there's two types we need to know about for this. We need to know about single mode optical cables, which are specifically designed for long distance, high speed data transmission. And basically what that breaks down to is there's only one mode of light. There's only one single laser shooting through that cable, essentially, right? The core glass is quite narrow. You can see this is very narrow, and the laser is one laser going through the middle. This basically goes a lot further, okay? So it's good for long distance transmission, for high bandwidth requirements, and also has minimal interference, all right? Now, contrast that with multi-mode fiber optic cable, in which case the core glass, you can see it's a lot wider now, isn't it? Right? It's a lot wider, and you also have multiple lasers coming through the middle, right? You've got 1, 2, you could have more as well. Now, it's still super fast, but it may have higher attenuation, which basically means multi-mode fibers experience more signal loss compared to single mode fibers. So generally, it's going to be shorter distance. It's less suitable for long distance communication because the longer it goes, the more signal loss it experiences. It's still super fast over reasonable distances, definitely longer distances than Ethernet, therefore more expensive, but not as long as single mode fiber. So for your exam, you might need to know that, like, hey, we're looking for a type of optical, fiber optic cable to go like really, really long, and we want it to be super reliable and not susceptible to attenuation. In that case, you would probably want to go with a single mode, especially if budget isn't too much of an issue. All right, now we're going to move on to peripheral cables. Am I saying that right? Peripheral cables. Yes, I am. There's 4, I think, that we need to know about specifically that your exam lays out. Now, here's where we come to some of the easier stuff. In some ways, USB 2.0, we all know what a USB cable is. Looks like this, right? It's that square type connector. What we do need to know is the speed, which is 480 megabits per second. The maximum length is around 5 meters. Really, guys, mostly you just need to know about the speed, about 480 megabits per second. Here's another important thing I'm going to say. You need to know that you can identify it physically as a 2.0 as opposed to a 3.0, which is a bit faster. 2.0 is identifiable because it is white. You see how that connection in there is white, right? It's not green, it's not blue, it's not red, it's white. That's often indicative that it is USB 2.0. And as soon as you see that white connection, or you see that it's USB 2.0, you'll know that the speed is about 480 megabits per second, okay? Keep that in mind, and you'll see why it's relevant right about now. That's in contrast to USB 3.0, all right? Here we have a variety of different speeds. Before we get to the speeds, let's take a note of some of the differences here, right? Take a look at these cables here, USB cables. Different color? I think so, right? Blue on the inside. Look at that. Blue on the inside. Blue, blue. It's all blue. If it's blue, it's indicative that it is in fact USB 3.0. Now you do need to know the speeds of the different types of USB 3. There's 4 different generations or types of USB 3 cables that you need to know, and there's a little trick you can use to memorize it so it's not super stressful once you get this down. Really, all you need to know is that USB 3.2 generation 1 is 5 gigabits per second. That's truly the only thing out of these you need to memorize, and the reason being, let me just slightly shrink my highlighter here so it's not, is that better? Just, okay. The reason that's the only thing you need to know, truly, is because there's a little trick, right? USB generation 3.2 Gen 1 is 5 gigabits per second, and USB 3.2 Gen 2 just doubles. It doubles to 10 gigabits per second, okay? So generation 1 is 5 gigabits per second, generation 2 is 10 gigabits per second. The next 2 generations are simply basically a mathematical equation that rely on these two. So you'll see what I mean. We'll go through it all and it'll make sense. So Gen 1 is 5 gigabits per second, Gen 2 is 10 gigabits per second, 3.2 Gen 1 times 2, or 1 by 2, is 10 gigabits per second. Oh, okay, so 3.2 Gen 1 is 5, and then times 2. Okay, so Gen 1 is 5, 5 times 2 is 10. Okay, so to get that, I only need to know that Gen 1 is 5, and then I just times that by 2, and I've got it. Whereas 3.2 Gen 2 by 2 is 20. Oh, okay, well Gen 2 is the one that's after 5, and I know the one after 5 doubles to 10, and 10 times 2 is 20. So really, when it comes to memorizing USB 3, just remember 3.2 Gen 1 is 5 gigabits per second, and then after that, Gen 2, it just doubles to 10. So long as you remember that, you can use this little indication to work out how fast it is. You don't need to remember all 4 of these. You just need to know Gen 1, 3.2 Gen 1 is 5 gigabits per second. And then you know it doubles after that to Gen 2. Then you can say, oh, Gen 1 times 2, oh, well, I know Gen 1 is 5, and 5 times 2 is 10. Okay, sweet. 3.2 Gen 2, oh, well, Gen 1 is 5, and after that it doubles to 2, so 5 doubled is 10. 10 times 2 is 20, right? So don't try to remember all of that. Just remember Gen 3.2, Gen 1 is 5. But guys, look, otherwise go ahead, take a screenshot of that if you find that method more helpful and you want to try to write the table out by hand. But that's how I remembered it for my exam. I was coming into this with no IT experience. That's how I got through it. Okay, now the next one is serial. Long story short, guys, first of all, serial cables look like this, right? Like they're really, really old type of cables. They're looking real old, real raggedy, all those pins in there. They're used to connect to serial consoles on devices like switches, routers, or other hardware for configuration purposes. So you would use a serial cable to connect to a switch in order to manually configure that switch For your exam, that's really what you need to know. Serial cables are used to connect to hardware devices like switches in order to configure them manually. That's the key thing you need to know for your exam. The next one is Thunderbolt. Now, Thunderbolt is known for its high-speed data transfer capabilities and versatile use. So there's 3 that you need to know about, guys. Really in the details here, but you do need to know all of this. Thunderbolt version 1. Actually, I'll tell you about the physical connections first. Sorry, let's have a look, right? It's easily identified by the Thunderbolt cable here, right? The Thunderbolt image, sorry, the little icon there. If it has an icon on it, it's using the Thunderbolt standard, right? So with that being said, let's have a look at the 3 different versions. So Thunderbolt version 1 has 2 channels and it operates at 10 gigabits per second per channel, which means it has 20 gigabit per second total throughput. And it uses a mini DisplayPort connector. You'll need to know what that looks like. We'll cover that coming up. Thunderbolt version 2 has 20 gigabits aggregated channels, also uses a mini DisplayPort connector. How is it different from V1? They're both 20 gigabits, right? Well, while both versions offer a total of 20 gigabits per second, Thunderbolt version 1 provides this through 2 separate 10 gigabit channels. Thunderbolt version 2 aggregates these 2 channels into a single 20 gigabits per second channel, allowing for faster and more efficient data transfer. So that's the key difference there. And finally, the big boss of them all, Thunderbolt version 3 is 40 gigabits per second aggregated throughput with USB-C as the connector. We should know USB-C is like by far superior to all the other ones that we got there. All right. So again, we've got that table here. Take a screenshot, try to remember it. You will need to know it. All right. I'm sorry to say that, guys, but you will. That's just how it is. Oh boy, we got a bit more to go. All right, that's okay. That's okay. We're locking in, right? A few more to go through. We need to know our video cables. Let's go to HDMI, guys. We're going to try to fly through those. So they're a newer technology, one of the newer cables. I'm sure we've all used one before. They use a 19-pin connector. They have 19 pins and they transmit both video and audio. All right. Now, you'll also need to be able to visually identify them. So hopefully we should know what they look like. I'm sure you have one lying around your house, right? But just know that it looks like that. You just need to know, basically, it looks like that. It's got a weird little lip thing up the top. All right. Now, DisplayPort, on the other hand, also does video and audio signals. It can be adapted to HDMI and DVI using any available adapters, as most cables can. That applies to most of them. All right. Now, the key giveaway with the DisplayPort is its ability to daisy chain. So what that means is, how do I explain that? You can, like, if I have my computer here, and then I have a monitor here, and then I have a monitor here, normally what I would have to do is I would have to, with any other cable, I'd have to have one cable coming out here, and I'd have to have another separate out of my PC coming out here. But with DisplayPort cables, daisy chaining means you can have this one plugged into here and then the cable plugged into here, and it will, because it's on the same chain, this monitor will now also be connected to that original source. So that's what daisy chaining is. That's one of the key things when it comes to DisplayPorts. All right. So now what do they look like? They look like this. You just need to. There's not much more for me to say other than they look like this, right? You can see roughly how that looks. It's got that weird little angle off to that side. All right. So just know they look like that, and they can do daisy chaining and high quality video and audio output. All right. The next one is DVI, or digital visual interface cables. These guys only do video signals, so they only transmit video signals, and there's 3 different types. There's DVI-D, which transmits digital signals only. There's DVI-A, which transmits analog signals only, right? D for digital, A for analog, and DVI-I, which transmits both. You'll need to know that D is digital, A is analog, and I is integrated, or both, okay? That's pretty much what you need to know for that. Only video signals, and it looks something like that. The pin outputs on the DVI will differ depending on if it's DVI-A, DVI-I, DVI-D, but that's roughly what it looks like. All right, that's roughly what it looks like. Now, VGA is the next one we need to know, and that is one of the older type of video cables that we do have going on out here. It's an older technology, and it also does video signals only, all right? It transmits an analog signal, which is really, really old, right? Technically known by the fact that it's a little bit fuzzier than the more high quality signals that we get these days. It uses a DB15 connector, which has 15 pins on it. You'll need to remember that. DB15 is VGA. Now, how do I say this? The maximum length is about 15 meters, but signal quality may degrade over longer distances. That basically means if it's really long, the signal quality might start to get fuzzier and fuzzier and fuzzier, right? When it comes to your troubleshooting part of the exam, you might need to remember that. Other than that, guys, look, hey, it looks like that. It looks like that. It looks like that. And it looks like that. All right, VGA, that's VGA. Next one is USB-C. Guys, we know all about USB-C. I honestly shouldn't need to tell you too much about this by now. We know it can be connected reversibly. There's no right or wrong way to put it in. We know it does video and audio signals. We know that it is also capable of doing power delivery, and it can be considered a single cable solution because it does video, audio, power, data transfer, everything you needed to do. USB-C can do it. It's pretty much the big bad boss out here. Now, other than that, you just need to know it looks like this, right? We know what it looks like by now. I've shown you before. It looks like this, and it looks like that. All right, that's pretty much what you need to know for that one. The next one is hard drive cables. Another one that we've been through quite a bit, so I'm not really going to spend too much time on it. We've got Serial Advanced Technology Attachment, or SATA. Now, we've talked about SATA cables. We know they're used to connect hard drives. We should know that by now. What we may not know is the speeds of the different standards of SATA, and you do need to know this, guys. Sorry to tell you, there's a lot of info to take in on this one. You may need to pause the video a few times. SATA 1.0 transmits 1.5 gigabits per second. SATA 2.0 transmits 3 gigabits per second. SATA 3.0 transmits 6 gigabits per second. SATA 3.2 transmits 16 gigabits per second. That's also known as SATA Express. Now, I want you guys to take a look at this. Take a look at these three. Tell me if you notice any kind of mental trick that might help you memorize the speeds of SATA 1, 2, and 3. You might notice SATA 1 is 1.5. Then it doubles to 3, and then it doubles again to 6. So again, guys, really you just need to remember, just like the USB 3.2 standards, SATA 1 is 1.5, and then it's double, and then it's double again, and then SATA 3.2 is 16. I don't know, you add a 1, there's no real trick to that. So you really just need to remember SATA 1.0 is 1.5, and SATA 3.2, or like fast SATA, or SATA Express, sorry, is 16 gigabits. These two can be remembered using that trick. Oh, it just doubles and then doubles again. All right. So you'll need to know that. I'm sorry to be the guy to tell you that, but you do need to know that. It has a data connector that's 7 pins, and it has a power connector of 15 pins as well for powering the actual drive itself. All right. A maximum length of about 1 meter there. SATA connectors can be visually identified generally by that little lip, see how it has that little L-shaped lip at the end there? It can be identified by, again, that little L-shaped lip at the end. It goes down. It has that little lip, if you know what I mean. All right, so that's a SATA. The other one is eSATA. Does everything SATA does, has all the same standards, that SATA has, and it's the only difference you really need to know is that it's used for external drives. We've talked about that before. eSATA is external SATA, and instead of having that little lip, the cable, here we go. So this is a SATA cable with that little lip. This is an eSATA cable. You notice there's no little lip there. So you just be able to visually identify each of those and distinguish them from each other. Now, the next thing we need to know is just adapters. I'm sure you know what an adapter is. You don't really need me to tell you too much about that. Basically, you can purchase adapters so that, let's say you have a, in this case, like a VGA cord, but you have an HDMI input on your laptop. You can buy an adapter, plug your VGA cord into here, and then that will be adapted, and you can plug your HDMI cable into your laptop. So you're now using your VGA cable as an input into your laptop in order to use that connection, right? Right. So you can buy adapters to mix and match between different video connectors for a wide variety of, you can go HDMI to VGA, you can do DisplayPort to HDMI, DVI to VGA, right? Whatever you want. Adapters are really versatile. They're useful for being able to use one connection in another input, right? We know what adapters are. You don't need me to say much more about that. Connector types. I think this is the last one, and then we're on to our questions. Yes. Okay, we're almost there, guys. Almost there. Now, connector types. RJ11. This is used for telephone connections. And in relation to your exam, this is going to be used in DSL internet connections, because remember, DSL internet uses previously existing telephone infrastructure. So it looks very, very similar to an RJ45, which is the Ethernet cable, but it's just a little bit smaller. Just a little bit smaller, okay? Little bit smaller than an RJ45. It has 6 pins, smaller and narrower than an RJ45 connector, all right? Looks like that. That's pretty much what you need to know. The next one is RJ45. This is for Ethernet connection. This is the connector on the end of your Ethernet cable, your Cat5, Cat6, Cat7 cable. RJ45 connector is what is used there. It's widely used for Ethernet network connections. It has 8 pins. It's larger than the RJ11 connectors, often used with twisted pair cables, right? It's used on a twisted pair cable, and it looks like this, right? It's how you get your wired internet connection from a shielded or unshielded twisted pair cable. All right, that's what you need to know. That's your Cat 6, Cat 7, etc. Next one is F-type. Now this is used for cable television connections and for cable internet connections, right? So if you have a cable modem, you'll be using an F-type connector, all right? And that connector is what goes on a coaxial cable, and it looks like that, or it looks like that. It looks like that. You just need to know that is an F-type connector, okay? It's used for cable internet, okay? And then you've got straight tip. This is a fiber optic network connector, and it's used for data transmission. So the straight tip can be identified by, it looks like it's kind of like a bayonet type thing. It's one sticking straight out, and you can always tell it's fiber by like that glassy kind of look of the connector on the end there, right? It's got a glassy kind of look to it, but it's got like a little bayonet to it, okay? That's the ticket. So it's got a bayonet lock mechanism, okay? The next one, that's for fiber optic. The next one is another fiber optic connector called subscriber connector, or SC. They could use the full term or the abbreviation. You'll never know with these exams. So it's used in fiber optic networks, and its appearance is it's a square connector with a push-pull design, easy to connect and disconnect, all right? So thanks, Senko. This is from their purchasing page. If you want to get one, you can get one over there. And it looks something like that. It's a little animation they did, right? Looks something like that. Square connector with no obvious outside locking mechanism, which is to be, that's for fiber optic network, that's to be contrasted against the next one, which is a lucent connector, LC connector. Frequently used in high density fiber optic networks. The key visual distinction, guys, is it looks pretty similar to the one we just looked at, right? But this one has this locking mechanism on top. And the way I remember this when I was studying for my exam was LC stands for lock. So if it's a square connector and it has a locking mechanism on top, that's the LC. If it does not have that locking mechanism, that's the SC, okay? The SC flips right out. The LC locks in place. That's how I remember it. The next one is the punch down block. So guys, punch down block is essentially used for terminating and connecting multiple wires in telecommunications and network applications. It's a block, and you would have a bunch of different Ethernet cables, different cables terminated on this punch down block. You would use a punch down tool. We talked about that previously in the tools section, the networking tools. A punch down tool to punch that cable in and terminate it on a punch down block. Okay, the next one is micro USB. We've looked at this before, right? Micro USB looks like this. It is used for connecting and charging mobile devices such as smartphones and tablets. It's a little bit older, right? It's a little bit of an older one. It's smaller than a mini USB with a flat and rectangular shape. So you can always identify it because it's asymmetrical. It's shorter on one side and longer on the other side, right? That's how you can remember to identify it. Longer on that side, shorter on that side. Okay. Now, the next one is mini USB. This is super, super old. It's previously used for connecting and charging older mobile devices, way older, and digital cameras. This one looks kind of funky, like it came out wrong. Shorter on one side, longer on the other, but it's got that weird kind of lip to it. All right, it's got that weird, like goes in, comes back out, and it's short on the top. That's how you remember what that one is for. And that's for really, really old, really old stuff. All right. USB-C. We've talked about it a million times. You really don't need me to tell you about it anymore. It looks like that. It's circular. It can be plugged in either way. It can do pretty much video, audio, data transfer, power transfer, anything you need. It's a modern and versatile connector. We know all about it by now. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Molex is used for providing power to internal computer components such as hard drives and optical drives. It looks something like what we see here. This is a Molex connector. All right. So you will need to know about the Molex connector used for providing power to internal computer components such as hard drives and optical drives. Next one, only two more to go. Next one is Lightning. We've talked about Lightning. It is a proprietary connector. That just means only the company that made it can use it. They have trademarked this design, so it's only used by Apple for Apple devices, and it's used on things like iPhones and iPads. We know what it looks like by now. We know it looks like this, right? It's kind of got that skinny rectangular connection with all those lines on it. That's a dead giveaway, right? It's got those lines. That's Lightning. We know what it does. I've talked to you about it before. And finally, we're at the end of this one, guys. DB9. Now, this is a serial cable used for serial communications, commonly found in older computer systems and peripherals. It looks like a D-shaped connector, and it has 9 pins. All right, it's 9 pins. A DB9 connector right here. It's a serial cable, serial connector. All right, DB9. So that would be the connector that you use to connect to devices like switches, etc., to manually configure them, for example. All right, guys, finally, we're at our practice questions. I know we've been waiting for this. I know we've taken in a lot. Now, guys, look, what I would really recommend is don't get too hard on yourself if you get a lot of these wrong. Testing yourself now, right after you've learned the content, is just going to be something that really helps solidify what you have taken in. There's a good chance you're going to have to come back and go over this again, because it is one of those exam objectives that is just so dense with such specific information about numbers. You're going to have to come back to it, and that's okay. Be easy on yourself, all right? So this one reads, a small business is setting up a new office network. They anticipate needing gigabit Ethernet speeds for file sharing and network connectivity between workstations. They also want to ensure the cabling infrastructure can support future upgrades to 10 gigabit Ethernet if necessary within the next few years, while keeping costs as low as possible. The cable runs will generally be less than 50 meters. A, Cat5. B, Cat5e, C, Cat6a, D, Cat8. So the question here is obviously, which cable should you recommend? Sometimes you may have to infer the question. It should be clear, hopefully. We'll go to the answer. Pause the video if you need more time in 3, 2, 1. Here we go. The answer is C, Cat8. So guys, it's the most suitable because they've specified their needs, right? They said that they want to make sure that they can have the ability to upgrade to 10 gigabits per second, all right? Now, Cat6a does meet this requirement, while Cat5e does not, right? It does not meet that requirement. It said they wanted to be able to go to 10 gigabit Ethernet speeds if they wanted to. Cat5e would not have allowed them to do that, right? Cat5e can support gigabit Ethernet at 1 gigabit per second, right? It's their immediate needs, but they said they wanted to be able to expand to 10 gigabit per second. So that is why Cat6a is the answer to that one. Now, next question. It says question 3. That's just because I don't give you every question in my learning guide, because I'd be here all day. There's infinite. So I'm trying to just give you enough to give you the rough idea. There's like something like 20 something questions on this, so I can't give you everyone, all right? But I'm giving you the broad idea of everything you need to have an understanding of. Question reads, a specialized research laboratory is establishing a high-performance computing cluster. They require reliable and high-bandwidth connections between their compute nodes and a central data storage system. The network must support the 10G base T Ethernet standard and be capable of handling bandwidth up to 600 megahertz to ensure efficient transfer of large scientific data sets. The environment may have some electromagnetic interference from sensitive scientific equipment. Which cable should they use? A. Cat 5e, B. Cat 6a, C. Cat 7, D. Cat 8. Your answer coming in 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Pause the video if you need more time. The answer is C. Cat 7. So guys, it's the most appropriate choice because they said they needed something at about 600 megahertz, right? Now, Cat 8 is going to be more expensive. It does support very, very, very high bandwidths and is designed for short distance high-speed connections in data centers. It does exceed the bandwidth requirement that we need, but it's going to be unnecessarily more expensive. They specified 600 megahertz. If they specify something that's pretty much spot on one of the cables, you're going to want to go with the cable that best meets that. Category 8 is at like 2000 megahertz, I think, right? So that's a significant overshoot. And we know category 7 is really, really good for having that additional shielding for that protection against additional interference, as they said they needed. All right, so Cat 7A for that one. And again, if you're getting these wrong, that's okay. This one's going to be another tricky one. When terminating an Ethernet cable using the T568B standard, what is the correct color order of the wires as they appear from pin 1 to pin 8 on the RJ45 connector? I am not going to read all that out to you. Pause the video, have a read, have a guess. I'm going to assume you've done that. Let's go to the answer. The answer is A, orange and white, orange, green and white, blue, blue and white, green, brown and white, brown. All right, that's the color order. There's really not much more to it that I can tell you. Okay, that's pretty much, you just need to know the color order. That's it. All right, so next one reads as follows. Marcus is running network cables above the drop ceiling in an office building's air handling space. Building codes in this area require the use of cables that are fire resistant and produce minimal smoke if they do catch fire to prevent the spread of toxins through the ventilation system. The cables being installed have a special jacket material designed to meet these safety standards for airflow spaces. Which type of cable is Marcus most likely installing? A. Single mode. B. Multi-mode. C. Direct burial. D. Plenum. Pause the video, take a guess, or an informed, definite answer, should I say, and we're going to go to your answer. 3, 2, 1, here we go. Hopefully we got this one right. That is Plenum, guys. Plenum rated cables are the ones that are safe for air ventilation in the case of fires, okay? The next question reads, a user is transferring a large video file from an external solid-state drive to their computer. The transfer is noticeably faster than when using older USB drives. The cable connecting the drive to the computer has a standard rectangular Type A connector on the computer end and a more robust, slightly different rectangular connector on the drive end. The file transfer is occurring at a theoretical maximum rate of 5 gigabits per second. Which cable are they using? A. USB 3.2 Gen 1, B. USB 3.2 Gen 2, C. USB 3.2 Gen 1 by 2, D. USB 3.2 Gen 2 by 2. Your answer coming in 3. Pause the video if you need more time. 2, 1. Here we go. Your answer is A. USB 3.2 Gen 1. It's just a matter of memorizing those things, guys. Remember, Gen 1 is 5 gigabits per second, and then it doubles to USB Gen 2, 3.2 Gen 2, and then you can use the names to actually work it out from there. All right, that's the key. We went over that. Let's go to the next question. Next question is, an office worker is trying to connect an older laptop to a projector for a presentation. The only video output port on the laptop is a blue D-shaped connector with 15 pins. The corresponding input on the projector is also blue and has the same number of holes. The image displayed on the projector is somewhat blurry, especially the text, and the colors appear less vibrant compared to the laptop screen. Which type of display connection is being described? A. HDMI, B. DisplayPort, C. DVI, D. VGA. Your answer in 3. Pause the video if you need more time. 2, 1. Here we go. Your answer is D. VGA, guys. Everything we saw was indicative of a VGA. A blue D-shaped connector with 15 pins is VGA, and it does analog signals, which are more susceptible to signal degradation, hence that lower quality of the image, okay? Now, look. There's some more questions here, but honestly, guys, I've been going for about an hour, and I'm starting to lose my sanity slowly. I'm doing this after work, So you just pause the video, have an attempt, and I'll scroll over. That's your answer. And next one. Pause the video, make a guess. Let's go to your answer. 3, 2, 1. And here you go. All right, read that if you want, because I am dying on the inside over here. Look, guys, if you have enjoyed this, I've got a completely 100% free practice exam over at Journey to Cyber. Actually, no, sorry, not even on the website. The link is directly in the description and pinned comment below. Practice exam, the free practice exam, no catches, has 3 performance-based questions for you. It has 90 multiple choice questions, so you can get an idea of how well you're going. And if you like everything you're seeing in my course, guys, this is all just very small excerpts from my learning guide. My learning guide helped this guy pass his exam today. It actually helped him pass his 1101. It contains a learning guide. It contains 3 full-length practice exams with performance-based questions. It has interactive troubleshooting, performance-based question simulations, and a spreadsheet to track your progress. It has pretty much everything you need. So I break everything down specifically by the exam objective, as you can see here, and even more into the actual dot points themselves. For each dot point, each exam objective, you get multiple choice questions specific to that exam objective, so you can isolate and find your weak areas. You get 11 performance-based questions in total in the learning guide. You get interactive performance-based questions. You can actually click on all these buttons. This one has, you can click on each of these pictures and solve their troubleshooting issues. This one, you can click on the printers and solve their troubleshooting issues. So it really gets you in that mood of really trying to actually solve issues, and you might have to read an email and take the information from the email and see what you think the issue is, etc. I also have a video on how to 10 times your learning with free AI tools. So when you locate your weak areas with my specific questions broken down by exam objective, you can then use the tools I talk about in this video to make sure you actually fix those weak areas. And finally, I have another video in there showing you exactly how to use the multiple choice questions to study efficiently and effectively, because most people do it wrong, and that's why a lot of people do fail these exams, because they're quite dense exams, and if you don't use the right study techniques, you want to make sure you are using the right study techniques so that you have the best chance of succeeding. And I tell you how to use these multiple choice questions to study the best possible way. So that's all over at journeytocyber.com, guys. If you want it, go ahead and grab it. If you're enjoying this free content and you don't feel like you need that, that's all right too. You can definitely do all this for free, watching this free series and following along with the questions and just making sure you're really stopping to try to understand everything we're talking about here. All right. So with that being said, I'll see you in the next one. And please continue to enjoy your journey to cyber. I just came up with that then. I think that's a cool way to sign off the videos. Journey to cyber. All right. See ya.